I'm willing to guess that most of us are fairly familiar with our parable in our gospel reading today of the absent master. And it gives us kind of a vivid picture of what Christ is and what the church is. We hear from this, or it's clear from this picture, that we will live better lives if we're always aware of what our master wants. In this parable, Christ portrays himself as the master of the house and the head of the estate. And you kind of like to think this is probably a palatial estate, family, friends, they're the servants. And the parable itself, the servants are Christ's disciples. And the head servant would be who they would call the steward. It's his specially chosen apostle. In this picture, he wants us to have of his church is one not of something vague, cold, and impersonal, but of a household, a place of life and communion, of work and relaxation. And even when the master is absent from the estate, the servants are still meant to keep the household going responsibly and energetically. In this image of the church, in this world, in the midst of human history, is before Christ came again to judge the living and the dead, and to make a new heaven and an earth. And during this period, Jesus has delegated his authority to the steward, to the apostle, or his successor, in our case the bishop, to take charge of overseeing the work of Christ's disciples. This tells us a lot about Christ's leadership style. He wants us to be co-workers, friends, real members of his household, not just mindless robots that do whatever we're told. And yet, Christ remains the master. He is the center, he's the redeemer, and he's the owner of the universe. The universe is not a democracy. Christ is not an elected official that we can vote out. The Lord is by nature in charge because of his all-powerful and all-wise and all-loving. And we are his followers. But the society that we live in today is an individualistic and democratic society. And it tends to be suspicious of authority. For political purposes, this can be healthy. But when the individualistic and democratic mindset seeps into our spiritual life, it can wreak havoc for us. Many people, in fact, refuse to follow Christ because they think it's beneath their dignity to follow somebody else. And in fact, since Christ is truly the Lord of the universe, following and obeying him is the wisest and most mature path that we can take in life. And it's also a mission that we should all undertake. When we realize that our life is a mission, it changes our outlook on life. One aspect that is especially affected is how we use our time. In business world, many times they'll say time is money, because they know that time is a limited resource. As Christians, we also understand that time is a limited resource. We don't have an unlimited amount of time to do with whatever we want to, and so using it to fulfill our mission is important. For us, we might say time is kingdom. One thing that will help us with to manage our time well is to be responsible and not be like the lazy servant to our king, and to budget the amount of time that we spend entertaining ourselves. Now, I'm not saying that that's not important. It is important that we have a certain amount of relaxation and recreation in order to keep our life balanced. And that is a means to an end. But our society tends to take pleasure, fun, and entertainment not as a mean, but as a goal in life. And that attitude opens the door to overindulgence in entertainment and to wasting the precious resource of time that we have. And since we live in this society, we are vulnerable to that temptation. Can we keep a proper balance by having enough self-discipline to budget how much time we spend on entertainment? Whether it's watching television, time on the computer, time with our cell phone, exercising, anything that we might do. We need to find a healthy way to relax. But as Christians, our mission always comes first. And it's up to us to be responsible stewards of our time and to plan ahead. Today, when we receive our Lord in Holy Communion, let's each speak to him about our aspects of our lives. Let us renew our commitment to the mission that he has given us. And let's ask him to help us keep first things first, not only this week, but every week.